4 billion years ago, there was no life on Earth, only a violent boiling ocean of toxic chemicals. But then, a glitch occurred. A microscopic, fragile bubble of lipids wrapped itself around a self replicating molecule. The very first single celled organism was born. If you compress the entire 4.6 billion year history of the Earth into a single 24-hour day, that tiny microbe appeared at around 4 a.m. And humans? We didn't show up until one single second before midnight. Yet every single creature you see today, the soaring eagle, the deep sea squid, the house cat on your couch, and you, share the exact same starting line. We are all written in the exact same programming language, DNA. But how did a blind microscopic speck of dust in a boiling ocean transform into a creature with eyes, a heart, and a conscious mind? The answer isn't a grand deliberate design. The answer is a mistake. Every time a cell divides, it must copy its entire genetic code. That is a biological manual containing 3 billion letters. Imagine a monk typing out a massive book by hand over and over again for eternity. Eventually, he will make a typo. In biology, we call these typos mutations. They are copy paste errors in your DNA. Most of the time, these glitches are fatal. They break the organism, but every once in a while, a glitch occurs that accidentally grants a superpower. And that accidental mistake changes the history of the world. Take, for example, the eye. How does a blind world suddenly learn to see? For millions of years, the earth was entirely dark to its inhabitants. Creatures bumped into each other in the ocean depths, navigating only by touch and chemical scent. Then, around 500 million years ago, a single celled organism suffered a copying error. A tiny patch of its membrane accidentally developed light sensitive proteins. It couldn't see shapes, it couldn't see color, it could only tell the difference between light and shadow. But in a dark ocean, knowing which way is up toward the sun is a massive survival advantage. Over generations, another glitch occurred. That flat patch of light sensitive cells indented, forming a cup like shape. Suddenly, the creature could tell which direction the shadow was coming from. It could sense a predator approaching. Millions of years later, another typo filled that cup with a transparent gel, creating a primitive lens. In the span of a few evolutionary moments, the blind world was shattered. The Cambrian explosion erupted because creatures could suddenly target their prey, and prey could see their hunters. An arms race of vision had begun. Today, the human eye is so incredibly complex that early critics of evolution claimed it could never have occurred naturally. Yet, when we look across the animal kingdom today, we can still see every single intermediate step of this eye evolution alive and functioning in primitive mollusks. Once the copy-paste errors of DNA were combined with the brutal filter of natural selection, the tree of life exploded into bizarre, hyper-specialized masterpieces. Consider the polar bear. Just 150,000 years ago, a mere blink in evolutionary time, there were no polar bears. There were only brown grizzly bears roaming the forests of Eurasia. But as the ice sheets expanded, some grizzly bears pushed north in search of food. In the blinding white wilderness of the Arctic, a dark brown bear stood out like a beacon. Seals could see them coming from miles away. The brown bears were starving. Then, the glitch happened. A grizzly cub was born with a specific genetic mutation, a typo in a gene called lysed, which controls pigmentation. This cub was born with a defect. Its fur lacked pigment. Its hair follicles were completely hollow and transparent, scattering light to appear pure white. In the forest, this white cub would have been a target and died quickly. But on the Arctic ice, it was invisible. It could stalk seals without being seen. It ate, it survived, it passed on its defective, pigment free gene to its offspring. Within a few thousand generations, the brown bear had entirely transformed into a brand new apex predator of the ice. Or look at the incredible camouflage of the reptile world. The chameleon doesn't just change color to hide, it uses microscopic crystals in its skin. By contracting or relaxing its skin cells, it alters the distance between these nanocrystals. When the crystals are close together, they reflect short wavelengths of light like blue. When they are stretched apart, they reflect longer wavelengths like red or yellow. How did this develop? Through millions of years of lizards being eaten by birds, the lizards with slightly better cellular control over their skin reflection survived just a fraction of a second longer. In the game of evolution, a fraction of a second is all it takes to pass on your genes. But this brings us to a terrifying modern realization. For 4 billion years, this brutal, beautiful system worked perfectly. The weak died. The strong survived. The environment acted as a harsh sculptor, carving away the evolutionary mistakes and leaving behind only the most resilient, hyper-adapted specimens. We, Homo sapiens, are the result of that sculptor's chisel. Our ancestors were elite athletes and geniuses of survival. They had to be. But then, 10,000 years ago, we did something unprecedented. We stopped letting the environment sculpt us. We decided to sculpt the environment instead. We built houses. We grew crops. We created medicine. We built societies. And in doing so, we accidentally turned off the engine of evolution. Scientists studying ancient human skulls have made a shocking discovery. Over the last 10,000 years, the human brain has actually shrunk by about 10%. We are losing our gray matter. Why? Because of a biological phenomenon known as self-domestication. When we domesticate wild animals like turning wild boars into farm pigs or wolves into pugs, their brains shrink. Why? Because they no longer need to navigate a hostile, complex wilderness. They don't need to hunt, outsmart predators, or remember vast territories. The collective takes care of the individual by building civilization. We did the exact same thing to ourselves. We traded individual biological brilliance for collective societal survival. The individual human is softer, weaker, and less intellectually agile than a hunter gatherer from 20,000 years ago. We have stepped out of the wild and into our own zoo. Because we stopped evolving biologically but kept evolving technologically. We have created a devastating mismatch. You're currently living in a hyper optimized digital landscape using an operating system designed for the Stone Age. Every struggle you face today, your mental health crisis, your addiction to screens, your metabolic diseases, is not a personal failure. It is an evolutionary glitch. Your brain is programmed to seek dopamine, a neurotransmitter that was incredibly hard to earn on the savannah. Dopamine was the reward for finding a rare berry bush or successfully hunting a mammoth. It kept you alive. Today, a teenager in his bedroom can trigger a massive dopamine flood by simply scrolling through short-form videos. The algorithm exploits your ancient desire for novelty, trapping your primitive brain in an infinite loop of empty rewards. Your body is programmed to hoard calories because food was scarce. When you see sugar, your DNA screams, "Eat it all," before the next famine. But in a world of drive-thrus and supermarkets, that exact survival instinct is causing heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. Your nervous system is programmed to enter fight or flight mode when your status in the tribe is threatened. On the savannah, being cast out of the tribe meant certain death. Today, your brain triggers that exact same life or death panic response when you receive a passive-aggressive email from your boss or a negative comment from a stranger on the internet. We are drowning in cortisol, adrenaline, and sugar because our DNA doesn't know we left the forest. So where does this leave us? We cannot go back. Our shrinking brains and softened bodies could never survive in the raw, unshielded wilderness of our ancestors. We are entirely dependent on our technology, but we cannot stay here either. The mismatch is tearing our minds and bodies apart. So, we are preparing to execute the final, most dangerous phase of the human story. We are about to overwrite the code. For 4 billion years, life on Earth was shaped by the slow, accidental typos of DNA replication. But today, we are taking the typewriter away from nature. Through CRISPR gene editing, we are actively rewriting the human genome. We are no longer waiting for random mutations to make us stronger, smarter, or immune to disease. We are typing the commands ourselves. Through brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink, we are attempting to bypass our biological limits entirely, merging our organic brains with digital intelligence. We are attempting to force our own evolution. But we must ask ourselves, what happens when a species that was built by struggle suddenly eliminates all struggle? If we edit out our fears, do we lose our courage? If we edit out our pain, do we lose our empathy? If we edit out our mortality, do we lose the very spark that makes life worth living? We have successfully escaped the prison of natural selection. The gates of evolution have closed behind us. But as we look forward into our synthetic engineered future, we must wonder. When we finally finish rebuilding the human body and mind, who or what will be the one occupying it? Think about that the next time you look in the mirror.